Hello and welcome. Good night, everyone. Today is October 16th, 9:30 p.m. Hopefully you guys are going to bed soon. But I wanted to cover a few things that just ran across my news feed. It's important. Let's talk about it. Number one, Biden announces $425 million security aid package for Ukraine. Let's go ahead and bring this up. So as you can see here, President Biden on Wednesday discussed U.S. support for Ukraine on its defense against Russian aggression during a call with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. And he announced a new $425 million aid package. Included in the package are additional air defense capabilities, air-to-ground munitions, armored vehicles, and munitions. And the White House said in a readout to the president's call, President Zelensky updated President Biden on his plan to achieve victory over Russia, and the two leaders tasked their teams to engage in further consultations on next steps. The call follows Zelensky publicly detailing in Kyiv his plan for Ukraine's victory against Russia in the more than two-year war, saying international support through military assistance, intelligence sharing, and political commitments are keys to ending the war, no later than next year. So basically, I also saw somewhere else that Australia was sending tanks to Ukraine. So it's getting to a point where they're just keep fueling the fire. And the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because we just keep sending money to Ukraine constantly, 800 billion, now another 425 million. And we have a lot of people that need help here in the United States of America. Thoughts? Me personally, I think we're spending way too much overseas. A lot of that money could be used elsewhere, especially here at home. People have been devastated by hurricanes. That money could be spent a little bit better here. And number two, we have how many countries in this planet? Many others that can also, come up to the table and bring some funding for Ukraine if you guys want to keep supporting that war. Me personally, that should have already been over. There should no longer be any type of wars regarding Ukraine and Russia. The war should be over. Whatever land they already have, they should just stay the way it is right now. And I think we're just spending way too much on a war that shouldn't be. We shouldn't be policing over there. All right. Now that that's said, I did have one other topic I wanted to discuss. Vice President Kamala Harris was recently on Fox News, and here's how that went. Here we go.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get you the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You had the
please.
White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten.
So she danced around the question. He was asking, does she regret the decision? She keeps saying from day one, she tried to address it. That's like me saying, the house is burning. I tried to grab a water gun and throw the fire out. It didn't solve the problem. Yet we did our best. We did our efforts. So, you know, we're on the right track. The other thing she's dancing around the question is the asylum program that she just mentioned. You can look this up in other sources. Basically, it promotes a system. It promotes people who are comfortable lying. If I, for example, am from, let's just say, South Africa, I'm coming here to the United States. When the person who's looking for asylum is getting asked the question, are you here looking for asylum because you might be in danger of going back to your country? Well, if you're going to be giving citizenship to those with asylum, guess what I'm going to say? I'm looking for asylum. It's very simple, right? I mean, if you say no, you're going to probably get thrown back to South Africa. Or you're just going to be like, why go through the hardship of going the harder way when you can just say, I'm looking for asylum? That's what this whole program did. Made it way too easy for that. Let's continue, though.
Enough penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings. What we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did. And we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge of.
Fun fact, the Border Patrol just endorsed Trump not too long ago, I think yesterday or the day before.
Affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to.
She's only got 25 minutes on this, so she doesn't want to answer questions. So she just wants to keep rambling, I can tell.
Kill it, because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
Six Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the six Democrats. But more importantly, back to the
Bernie
original
Sanders
premise,
voted against it.
Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those
I think it's
families
really, I think
an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together
Madam Vice President.
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss, sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that
I'm
this
trying
is
very
a
hard
perfect
not to
immigration
pause this.
system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the border.
He nailed it. She rescinded all those policies that Trump had, eased up on the border, is providing solutions, asylum programs. They even have an app now where you can go through pathway to citizenship super quickly, while family members have been very struggling their whole lives to get citizenship. They're now passing it out like candy. It's something that should be, me as a father of immigrants, is something that even I am very careful of what she's doing. And I'm still don't understand her full plan. Maybe it's to earn Democrat voters on every single state once those people become citizens. Since she gave him citizenship, I'm assuming she thinks that that she has owed their vote. But there's a lot of crime coming into these states, especially the blue states, New York, California. I mean, San Francisco's unrecognizable right now.
Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and
that.
I've not done that
She
as
did
Vice
say that.
President. I will not do that as President.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted
She keeps saying this.
transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa
it's trained.
cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as Vice President. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I think
say
Donald Trump would say he did.
Oh, follow the
say as
law.
president.
That doesn't answer the
Like
question.
I said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
On
it was
plans for
different,
the
but
American
we'll move
people,
on.
I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16
Since she took office with Joe Biden, housing has skyrocketed. My taxes on my property have gone up by about $800 a month. A lot of people are not able to afford housing right now. So I'm not sure what she means by her plan. Her plan is her and Joe Biden's plan. That's exactly what's happening right now. Groceries are very high. If you take a look at the amount of border crossings that are coming in, these people need places to live, right? And I'm not saying it's, I respect Hispanic people. I'm Hispanic. I respect all types of people, but at the end of the day, if housing shortages are happening across the country, that means that your rent's going to go up. That means that your mortgage payments are going to go up. It's very simple.
Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people say-
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has.
She is the page, right? Isn't she like the vice president right now? So if you turn the page, you're going back to you're going to a different page. So I don't know. That might be the wrong word she chose.
Come out of Donald Trump, people are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private.
In case you haven't noticed, she mentioned that she wants to give everybody $25,000 for your down payment on your house. Guess what money is being used for that? Not the government's money, your money. So all that taxpayer dollars is going to be used to help people buy houses. And if I'm selling a house, guess what? That means that I know that you're getting 25 grand from the government. So if I was short 300 at 300, I might go up to 325, 330. There's no negotiations happening. I know you got the money. Simple. Number two, she also did mention that there was a lot of housing stuff, the housing epidemic, the prices have gone up. If they continuously print money, right, inflation is just bound to happen. There's no way around it. They keep sending money to Ukraine. They keep saying they don't have money for other things like FEMA or Social Security is going to run out. Yet they constantly find millions of dollars to send overseas. Can we make that make sense? I'm worried that a lot of people are voting for Kamala just simply because they hate Trump. And I hope that's not the case. That happened the first time. And as you can see, hopefully you're starting to make sense of it. Like when you go to the grocery store, Costco, ShopRite, Publix, wherever you're going to buy stuff, I'm assuming you're feeling it, right? When you go to make a purchase. So I hope people are just voting on policies and not whether you like this person or that person, or whether she's black or whether she's Indian or whatever she is. Please vote for policies, not for liking a person. Let's continue.
Sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70%
page.
of people
That is
tell
about turning the
pollsters-
page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking
What?
about. You and I both know
She
what
didn't
I'm
just
talking
say that,
about.
right?
What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about
What?
is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him
Madam
instead
Vice
of
President,
the American people.
If
People
that's the
are
case,
tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's
if
not supposed to be. It is
not an answer to the question,
supposed to
though.
be a
So are
cakewalk
they
for
misguided, the
anyone.
50%?
Listen,
Are
let
they
me-
stupid?
Oh,
What is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to
that
you,
was the question that we asked him.
you didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be.
I got to pause it right there. He never locked up anybody who opposed him. When everybody was saying lock up Hillary Clinton, which he probably could have started that, he never did. He's been in office 4 years. All of the threats that they said, a threat to democracy, start of World War III, everything that they said was going to happen never happened under Trump. everything that's happening that everybody's worried about is actually happening under her and Biden's watch. So the other threat to democracy is, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again, this whole misinformation thing is complete censorship. Whoever is spreading the narrative is going to keep trying to persuade people by saying misinformation, misinformation. They're just going to keep hiding the other information that makes things accurate. This is how dictators start. That's why he said there's threats within.
Be willing to be able to handle.
Giving you another example, the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, if you take a look at the situation, everybody keeps asking, did Trump win the presidency? Or are you admitting defeat to the last election? They never want to admit that they actually cheated. Mark Zuckerberg admitted that there was election interference. He literally said on a letter that they were pressuring him to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. That was huge. That is what some people swayed their vote that day. Yet they keep saying there was no election interference. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this,
No,
Madam Vice President.
but
You call
let's not
Donald
diminish
Trump.
the significance
you
of that.
call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
He's
he
unstable.
is unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
But
is.
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion, that Iran posed a threat to Israel. I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
But those
is,
proxies were getting
and
funded
my
by Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to
oil
Donald
profits.
Trump,
Hold on.
who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put
But here are
Iran in check.
the estimates
and
in
then
billions
it was during Donald Trump's
that go
administration
towards
that
the Iran regime.
that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention
Madam
how
Vice
Donald
President,
Trump has
all of this money
has treated
that
and
has
talked
gone
about
in the
America's
past few
military
years.
and military service people,
Critics
calling
say
them
that it goes to
suckers and
Hezbollah,
losers,
Hamas,
has diminished
and
the
Houthis. We're
significance.
talking over each other. I apologize.
Well, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a
And there
decision
are
that
critics
they
who
feel.
look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more
there
to
are
say,
a lot of
actually.
things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and
Yes.
that's why we
I
invited
invite
you
everyone
here.
to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen our
here
economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
support America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thoughts? Did you guys like her interview? Did you not like it? Me personally, it's hard for me to watch sometimes. She dodges so many questions. It can be a little bit of a word salad at times. And I'm glad it's over. In terms of her policy, I do want to go check it out real quick. Why not? KamalaHarris.com. Here we go. Share screen. Boom. Here we go. Let's take a look. The final FEC deadline. We need to hit 1 million grassroots donations before FEC to scale back, depending and key battle. I'll say if you wait to join us, the time is now. Okay. Let's click that out. Where are the policies? Okay. Here we go. Look, they're even putting Trump Project 2025, something that he doesn't support on her policy. Where's the fact checkers? Where's those misinformation people? All right, let's see. There's policies here. Where? The issues? But let's vote. Volunteer. Let's try issues. You way forward. An opportunity and lower cost for families. She grew up in a middle-class family. Okay. Cut taxes. Here we go. Let's see. All right. So there's a lot of stuff here. Probably all about printing money, spending people's tax dollars. Strengthen and bring down the cost of health care. All right. Well, let's not let's not go too into the thick of things. If you guys want to read this, it's at kamalaharris.com/issues. But obviously, I'm voting for Trump. Thank you. Have a great night.